G'day guys, today I'm making a review video on these Dominator 4x4 Extreme rock sliders that I installed almost a year ago. So if you want to watch the install video, you can scroll back through a few of those YouTube videos and then find the install on that if you want to watch that first. But for today I'll be talking to you about these, the situations they've been in and how they've handled. So if you want to come take a closer look, we'll get you set up here and I'll talk to you more about it. Oh, hey, so these are the Dominator 4x4 Extreme rock sliders. So these are the powder coated black ones with the little bit of grip tape that's an optional extra that I got included with my deal. So these rock sliders aren't like all the other ones you see. So they stop at this front guard here and they stop just before the rear one. On most of the other ones I had seen, you have to take off this panel and it just leaves just a blank space looking a little bit awkward and out of place. So in terms of looks, I'll have to give it to these rock sliders. They don't require any panel modification or removal at all. It's just once the factory side steps come off, these go straight on. And that's one thing I do like about these. So these rock sliders, they've saved me quite a few different ways than I originally expected. When I got these rock sliders, I'm like, oh, I want to protect the door sills if I'm going to go up a rock and then bounce down on it really hard. But it's actually been kind of the opposite. I don't know if any of you guys have been to Lithgow. Most of the tracks there are all silty and a little bit of sandstone there, which can get muddy. And those aren't the tracks I'm really worried about. But you go closer to Lake Lyle in those areas and the tracks become clay, and after it rains, cars tear through, they create huge ruts where the wheel depth is so much bigger than what's on this car. And just from driving into those once they've hardened, or when they harden, they become almost as hard as concrete. You could kick them with a steel cap boot and only a little bit would crumble off. This car's actually gone through those ruts sideways. When one wheel slips in the other and the front on the same side slips in the opposite one, and it comes down and it bottoms out and smashes these rock sliders, which I think if I didn't have these, the factory side steps would have absolutely been juiced on those. They would have been all bent up and looking real bizarre after those trips. But just when it comes down onto the top of the rut, these have protected the underbody and also the door sills on those hard clay ruts once they've dried out, which I think I always expected to be using them on rocks, but to be using them on ruts just because my wheels aren't big enough to clear them, and when the wheels slip into different areas, they saved me, so I'm quite happy about that. Now, a lot of people have commented on how these sliders don't go all the way back and how it's minimized protection there. I've not been in this situation where I've needed the slider to come all the way back. I think it would just have to be one really narrow rock that you'd just have to fall on really badly or scrape the whole way along to get to the back wheel in this gap, which I just don't think would practically happen. I mean, if you are really having a bad day, it possibly could, but the way it is now, I like it, and I've not actually damaged this area whatsoever throughout my use of these sliders. So from what I've learned over time is the point of having rock sliders is they're just for that added peace of mind for when you least expect you need them. So there's been countless times where I think I'll clear a rock or I'll just come in at the right angle, but I end up finding out that these have still touched, which I'm very thankful for, rather than being factory side steps or the door sills, which these ultimately have been used more times without my intention than they have with my intention, because I purely just don't want to put this car on tracks that are going to scrape it and damage things to it. Yeah. So I parked up and I was waiting for my mate to complete this trail in his patrol as well. And I had parked in front of a little tree stump, which it would have been 40 to 50 centimeters off the ground. And just from watching my mate do the trail, he was on 3 wheels at one point, and I honestly thought that he was going to be on no wheels by the end of it. And I was so, almost shocked by it that I just completely forgot that I had parked in front of that tree stump. So by the time I came to then doing that trail for myself, I jumped in the car and drove straight up that tree stump. In low range in this, it crawls over anything pretty much. So before I had time to jump on the brakes, the wheel was up over that little tree stump and it had just sat on this guard here. And little did I know that it was about a quarter of it was actually on this rock slider. So the rock slider was taking most of the weight of the car. So I was quite surprised that this rock slider was only a quarter on the tree stump and was holding most of the weight of the car. It did, however, flex up a little bit, but that's completely expected when it was right on the tip of the slider. That's going to be where the most flex and bending happens because it's away from all the mounting brackets. But even still, it came up a little bit and just pushed a tiny bit on the sill, but that saved the car. If I didn't have the slider there, this whole flare would be ripped off and I'd have a tree stump up through the car and no way of getting the car off without causing further damage. But at the time, I actually just built up some rocks in front of the stump and behind this tire and then reversed back over the stump, and it turned out well. So all in all, I'm quite happy to have had these rock sliders on the car because at the end of the day, I would have thought, oh, I don't really need them for the trails that I was approaching, when in reality, I actually use these on some of the trails that I least expected. So I'm quite happy they've held up very well. The paint still looks good as new once it's been washed. Obviously underneath where it's been scraping on rocks, it's torn up a little, but other than that, they look absolutely awesome and they function awesome. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more from me in the future. These are the Dominator 4x4 Extreme rock sliders and they are awesome. Cheers.